Oh look, pavement ends. This is why we have four-wheel drive. This should be fun.
I'm Amy Haugland.
And I'm Alex Haugland.
And this is my 1998 Fiat Panda 4x4.
Welcome to another episode of Everyday to Exotic.
Yay!
There's over 200 cars in the Haugland Collection.
And it just keeps growing.
Our goal is to try and drive them all.
Each episode, we'll talk about the car's history, showcase its design and features, and dive into its mechanicals.
Then we'll take it out on a drive through the beautiful roads of Oregon.
Finally, we'll rate our car to see where it stands in the Haugland rank.
In this episode,
we explore the strange ways Fiat tried to sell you cars.
Amy lies to herself.
We won't talk anymore about that. And Alex shows how well he knows me.
It's a tiny, underpowered four-wheel drive, which is why you love it.
It's like if somebody shrank a Jeep in the wash.
All this and more on today's episode of Everyday to Exotic.
But first, let's take a look into the Panda's history.
Fiat Panda.
The Fiat Panda was introduced into the Italian car manufacturer's lineup in 1980, replacing the two-cylinder, air-cooled, entry-level Fiat 126 with a much more capable, more modern, and more practical car. The Panda marked the first time that Fiat entrusted the design of a large-scale production car to designers outside the company. That role was entrusted to Giugiaro and Aldo Mantovani at Italdesign.
The design remit for the Panda was to build a spacious but Spartan car, which would cost no more than the Fiat 126 it was replacing, and would be a practical car for everyday use. Giugiaro focused the design on being an efficient use of space with modular components and specified that the Panda's cargo area should be capable of holding two 50-liter wine demijohns, along with 4 passengers, showing that we aren't the only ones who measure storage space in wine.
After the initial design had been approved, the car was presented to the world as the Fiat Panda, being named after Panda, the Roman goddess and patroness of travelers. The car was an immediate success, with Fiat receiving over 70,000 orders in the first 2 months after it premiered at the Geneva Motor Show.
At launch, the Panda came in a range of configurations, with either the Fiat 126's two-cylinder air-cooled engine or 903cc water-cooled four-cylinder, with other engine options being introduced as the years went by. The most significant change, however, came in 1983 with the launch of the Panda 4x4. The four-wheel drive system was a manually selectable system developed in partnership with the Austrian companies Ster-Puch, providing the entire drivetrain except for the engine to Fiat to assemble to a specially reinforced body shell.
The end result was the first city car with a four-wheel drive system, taking an already capable and practical car and making it an excellent choice for light off-road driving, as well as being more capable in icy or snowy conditions, as often found in the mountains of Europe. To handle rougher terrain, the 4x4 system's design raised ground clearance to 18 centimeters and allowed for the car to remain upright on slopes approaching 50% grade. The Country Club model, like ours, even featured a dash-mounted inclinometer.
The capability also proved to be sufficient for the Panda to become a popular vehicle for long-distance off-road races and tours in environments like the Sahara Desert, the Australian outback, Iceland, and the Amazon.
In 1986, the Panda received an update to a Mark II specification, which was a significant redesign to almost all major components of the car, and then a second facelift in 1991. Production of the original design ended in 2003, when the car was replaced with an all-new Panda design designated the Mark III, and after more than 4.4 million Fiat Pandas had been built.
Our car is a 1998 Fiat Panda 4x4, originally sold new in Japan, where it remained until imported to the United States after being bought at auction by Soto Moto, an importer of interesting cars out of Japan for the enthusiast market, who we acquired it from. The car is essentially in all original condition, with less than 25,000 miles on it from new. Despite the Panda never being sold in the US, they're still incredibly common in Europe, and Amy has wanted to own one for years. If you wonder why Amy has wanted one of these things for years, let's actually look at this. It's tiny. It's not really that big of a car. It is a small-engined, underpowered thing. That's what Amy loves. That said, it's really cool.
It is sensible as well as fun. When Fiat created this car, they were going for a compact economy car. One of the ways that they made things inexpensive was everything's flat.
Flat panels are much easier to stamp than very complex rounded panels. So if you can stamp the hood in one go, fantastic. That's a lot less tooling to deal with. The tooling doesn't wear out as quickly. Nice and easy. Flat glass, left and right side are exactly the same. Doesn't matter. Windshield, easy replacement. No shape to it other than cut the glass out of a flat piece of double layer glass. You're good. So very, very easy. I mean, it has a radio. We've got an antenna. It's here. It's mounted on a little plastic thing. This plastic thing covers up the top hinge of the door. There's one on the other side too. It's just basic, cheap plastic. There's not a lot to it. There's not a lot, frankly, holding this on. But it works, and it's functional, and it does what it needs to do. Wipers? Who needs two wipers? We just need one. One will cover the entire flat glass of the only bits that you actually care about. Anything else would be extraneous, add weight, detract for performance, and make the car more expensive.
And this is definitely an everyman car. This is something that they wanted everybody to be able to drive. And with the 4x4 edition, it makes it fancy, a little bit more expensive, and it also means you can drive it anywhere.
Makes it very functional. For everyday to exotic, this car is solidly everyday. Stylistically, you'll notice about the only real chrome parts on the car is the Fiat logo in the grille. Fiat logo of this era. Of course, they keep changing it. Otherwise, you've got some black plastic. You've got some nice painted metal. Lights are plastic. No little chrome trim, nothing fancy. Just glass lenses, plastic corners. All very, very basic.
It's not set up to be pretty. It's set up to be tough and reliable.
When Giugiaro designed this car, he had shortly come off of designing in the United States what is the VW Rabbit, but in Europe was the VW Golf. It really was a groundbreaking, iconic car. And this car kind of echoes some of those lines. You start seeing the very square corners. You see sharp creases in the body lines and things that were really typical of that shift in design. A lot of it was about keeping the car very affordable and very approachable. And as a result, these sold really well. They were a very usable, reliable car.
And one of the things that they really pushed was this was to appeal to young people. And so the other thing that was really pushed with this car is it's fun.
Absolutely.
You don't take it too seriously. So up here, we also have a couple of vents. There's a vent here that draws air from outside into the heater box. And then there's these two vents on either side of the windshield that are fresh air vents and give you fresh air in the passenger compartment. Continuing down the side of the car, we have our side light, very important for safety, our matching plastic piece that hides the hinge and adds symmetry to the car. And then down here, we have our sort of plastic bumper thing that keeps people from dinging your door in the parking lot and also could protect you from branches and trees and things as you're going off-road.
Very minor branches, small branches.
Small branches. This is the one completely decorative piece on here, the Country Club sticker. And that's basically a trim package that just tells you kind of what cool stuff is on your car, which is, in our case, the inclinometer, which we'll get into later. Also says 4x4.
Just in case.
Just in case you forget. In the interest of, let's produce this cheaply. What is the cheapest way to do a door handle? Don't have a door handle. You just slip your fingers in here. Push the button with your thumb. Easy peasy. This is one of the most fun, basic things about this car, in my opinion. The fuel filler. There's no door, there's no flap.
Adds weight, detracts from performance, adds cost.
Yep.
Just turn it 90 degrees, pull on it, comes right out. Put it back in, turn it back 90 degrees, locked in place. Very, very simple.
And then you just hope that nobody wants to siphon your fuel.
Adding a lock would add weight, detract from performance, and make it more expensive.
You'll also notice back here, completely flat glass. And Fiat backwards, because it's exactly the same on both sides.
Yep.
So, TAFE.
Other things that you'll see on here as we move a little bit lower, we've got mud flaps front and rear. Really nice considering that this was made to go into fields and off-road a little bit and things like that. It's actually a functional off-road vehicle. Mud flaps keep all the junk off the body as much as it can, which you'll see isn't always that great.
And they say Fiat on them.
Yeah, absolutely. They're factory mud flaps. Moving down, one other nice option here is the fabric roof, which is a 2-section fabric roof. You can open the front or the back independently, and it basically folds back, straps into place, and allows you to get nice, light, fresh air coming straight into the car. On a nice day, it would be great to have. On the days that we're driving here, it's the middle of winter, we'll probably be keeping it closed. Roof rails, not only does it have good cargo capacity built into the car itself, but you can also now strap things to the top of it. So great for going to IKEA or other, whatever the Italian equivalent would be. So. And coming around the back, we have what makes this a very, very functional hatchback with a nice, large hatch that lets you put all sorts of stuff in here. I love the Panda 4x4 stamped into the sheet metal. Rather than like put a badge on or whatever, hey, you know, you could probably save money, make it bigger, and make it actually kind of cool. So just stamp it into the sheet metal in the first place, and then just paint it. We do have our little Fiat badge, again, sort of the logo of the era.
And it's plastic. There is no fancy chrome badging here.
Minimal handle, just put your hand underneath, push the button, opens the hatch. Rear glass is flat, happens to have heating element, so it does defrost. Again, four-wheel drive vehicle, driving it in snow, ice, whatever, you really need a rear defroster. That makes a ton of sense. The wiper, I believe, is an option. And again, really nice to have if you're driving this in really inclement, horrible conditions. A few of the other things back here that really sort of belie the history of this car in particular are some of the stickers. Do you want to go into that?
I would love to talk about stickers. This was imported into Japan, brand new, and has lived there for most of its life. So this sticker is Fiat imported by Fiat Auto Japan. And then this one up here is Areze Fukuyi. I think I pronounced that right. Fiat Auto Japan authorized dealer. So this was not like, oh, someone bought a used Fiat and imported it. It was, no, they wanted this one and paid the money for it to come into Japan, despite the fact that this is a left-hand drive car.
As we move in, we've got our little black exhaust pipe sticking out. If it were chrome, that would be like ostentatious and probably add cost. Our rear hatch opens up, and we've got a little rear parcel shelf thing here that, of course, we can detach and things if we needed to make a little bit more room to put things in. And you've got a pretty decent sized storage trunk here. So you may have noticed if you've been watching our videos, and just to sort of reiterate, we don't play golf. Now, the reason this is important is the standard thing, especially on sports cars, is how many sets of golf clubs you can put in the trunk of your car. I could care less. It means nothing to me. So we decided a much more useful measurement is how many cases of wine can you fit in the back. And as we said in the history, we evidently aren't the only people, because this car was designed to hold 2 50-liter demijohns of wine. That's a lot of wine, just as is, while also carrying a full complement of passengers. In cases, it's probably not quite as efficient because it's not all in one just giant container. We would have no problem fitting 4 cases across in the back here. And then, if we have even more wine to transport, which, hey, we like wine, we might, you can fold down the rear seat and lay it down all the way flat, and then stack higher or whatever you may need to do. And you could probably get a good, like, dozen cases of wine in this car. Looking back here, there's not a lot to the trim. The back of the seat's metal, pretty basic, but when you fold it down, it gives you a good surface to stack on. We've got a little rubber mat at the bottom. Most of the rest of the trim in this is really simple panels, just kind of stuck on. There's not a lot to the door here. The wiper motor sticks out into the back. You can see it. A cover would have added weight, detracted from performance, and added expense. Another way that they saved a lot of money on trimming this out is a lot of the interior is the same color as the exterior. All of the inside of the hatch here is the same. The area down here is the same. It goes up into the C-pillars here. It's all the same, just bare metal, painted the same color as the exterior. It runs along the top of the doors. It runs along the sides in the back. It basically is a big chunk of the interior of the car. Doesn't have to have some form-fitted plastic piece over the top of it to make it a car. We're going to go ahead and fold down the seat. To do that, one of the things we need to do is get this little parcel shelf out of the way. The first thing we need to do is get that off the tailgate. And up here, these little latches where the cord's attached, we twist, and they just come off. That is now loose. Then there are a couple levers, one on each side, next to the seat, which we push. That comes loose. We try and get the seatbelt around it, which is always a pain whenever you're doing this. There we go. Folds down. And now you can get a sense of how much space there is in here. Flip that up. Things now do not slide into the passenger compartment, and you can pack this completely full of wine.
Or, yarn.
I think at this point we're ready to start getting the mechanical wonder that is a four-wheel drive Panda. So Amy's gonna hop in the interior, get comfortable, and open the hood for me. So one of the things, since this car was sold new in Japan, it has some extra stickers. And this one obviously is a warning. So let's start there before we get too deep into it, so we know what we're dealing with. So, according to Google Translate, this says, danger. There are some parts in the engine compartment that become very hot. If you put your hand in carelessly, you will get burned. When reaching into the engine compartment, follow the precautions in the instruction manual and maintenance notes. Unfortunately, those are also in Japanese, so doesn't do me that much good. That said, because this wasn't a common car in the Japanese market, it essentially is the Italian model of this car. And so we also have all of the Italian weird little stickers telling us to use the right antifreeze in this car and what oil to use, all written in Italian, of course, in this case. And we have a few other little Japanese stickers here and there, such as on the radiator overflow bottle here, that basically says don't open when it's hot because you'll get burned. Kind of the same thing as what it says here, except it's less of the random sticking your hand in. So, other things you'll notice under here is half of the area under the hood is taken up by the spare tire. Where else do you put it? Well, if you want all the cargo room in the back, you cram it under here. The engine's tiny, it doesn't need the space. One of the disadvantages of the spare tire here, however, is that directly underneath it down here is our brake master cylinder. Fortunately, the clutch is a cable clutch, so we don't have to worry about any clutch hydraulics. But the brake hydraulics, you pretty much have to pull the spare to get access to, including the filler, which is tucked down under here. I can see the lid of it, but just barely. That said, the engine's a 1.1 liter, 4-cylinder, puts out about 54 horsepower, 63 pound-feet of torque. It works really well for this car. The car doesn't weigh much, so it has plenty of power for the most part, and it's well geared in order to have decent acceleration around town. Other things we'll see down here, we've got the other half of the engine bay seems to be a heater box, which is here. Our engine itself is this little block right here with a cover over it with our air filter. It sucks all of its air in through this rubber tube that goes up to the front, so it draws in fresh, cool air at all times. The coils are on this side. Basically, you've got 2 coil packs, alternator crammed in the back here. Air conditioning. It does have air conditioning. Main thing you can see for the air conditioning is right here, and this is your receiver dryer bottle. The rest of the air conditioning system is buried under there, basically under the alternator. Battery is a tiny little battery stuck in the back. You don't necessarily need anything big. It's not a big engine. Turns over fairly easily. It is transversely mounted, and so your front-wheel drive system, essentially, all runs off your transmission here. And then you've got a drive shaft that comes off that transmission and feeds to the back. Because it's not a full-time four-wheel drive system, there is a manual selector lever inside to pick it. Most of the time, this is a front-wheel drive car. So other kind of interesting things, we've got our washer bottle here. Let's give you a place to put a screwdriver. Screwdrivers are useful. We'll put a little dent in the washer bottle to put that in. Tire wrench, same type of thing. We'll just clip it to the washer bottle. There is a jack in here. It's under the spare tire. You basically have to pull the spare tire off to get to it. So it's kind of a pain to do. I'm probably not going to bother at this point. Otherwise, there's not really that much here. If you didn't know that this was four-wheel drive, you'd have a hard time telling from this view. This looks like pretty much every other small engine, front-wheel drive, little economy car of the era. Where you really start seeing things is when you start looking more underneath. So the main thing you're going to see from the front of the car that really shows that this is not your average city car is the fact that they put this nice giant steel stump guard on here, basically to keep you from bashing your oil pan and engine to pieces as you drive over rocks and things in fields. It's a really nice touch if you're planning on actually using this thing as an off-road capable vehicle. But that's about all that you can really see from here. Otherwise, the higher ride height, the changes in the rear suspension, the solid rear axle are the main things that you're going to see. And we'll get to those. So go ahead and close up the hood, and we'll start moving around the car. The front brakes are discs and just a nice, small, basic caliper. We've got alloy wheels on this. I don't think these cars necessarily originally came with Speedline alloy wheels. Moving to the back, you can really see the difference in ride height of the 4x4 and the fact that it leans down in the front and is raised in the back. These had more ground clearance than the stock non-4x4 version of the Panda. The back, though, we go back to cheap drum brakes because, hey, they're cheaper. That's why people use drum brakes in this era. Most cars have gotten away from it because they just aren't as good. This is not a heavy car. The drum brake works fine. And so coming around the back, we can actually see under the car here, we have a solid axle with a center differential on leaf springs. That stayed as the standard setup on all of the Panda 4x4s of these generations. The first ones had it, but the two-wheel drive cars actually went to a variant of independent rear suspension that these cars didn't get. Still, it's a nice system, it works pretty well, it gets you the ground clearance you need, it makes it fairly durable. So, I think that kind of covers all of the basic mechanicals of this. Honestly, it's a nice system, it's well designed. I guess when you get an Austrian military vehicle designer to make most of your four-wheel drive system, they're probably going to make something that works pretty well. That said, I think it's time to move on to the interior and opening up the top.
So now we're ready to talk about the interior, but before we do that, we are going to show you how the sunroof opens and let a little more light in here. So first, I pull this lever.
And then I'll take over. So we take this up, we kind of bunch up the fabric at the front, fold it so that it's more or less out of the way. Then the strap comes all the way around and hooks to that little loop right there.
It's very tidy.
There we go.
The interior is where they put the little bit of fanciness that they put in the Panda. We have some very nice patterned fabric, finished with luxurious plastic. Everything is very tidy, everything is very durable. It's just not made out of super luxury materials. This is the original interior. The person who had it before us took really, really good care of it, other than there's a cigarette burn in the fabric in the back. We won't talk anymore about that.
3, 2, 1, just like that.
The dashboard is great. I love this because it's very simple. It's very easy for me to interpret. You have a little drawing of your car with symbols that tell you what's happening or what's gone wrong. So it's like, hey, your blinkers are on, the little blinkers light up. Hey, your headlights are on, the little headlight lights up. Hey, your battery is dead, the little battery lights up. Maybe, because if it's dead, that might be a problem. We have a speedometer. It's in kilometers per hour, which means I have to do minor math. That's okay. I'm used to it. You have heater controls. You have your vents. You have your fan. You have your cigarette lighter, because of course you have your cigarette lighter. The horn is in the middle. I've got turn signals here. I've got high beams here. I've got air conditioning, which looks like it's an add-on because it kind of is, but air conditioning. I've got a original radio. It says Fiat on it, which is pretty cool. One of the things that I love is that the buttons are actually buttons. I mean, I've got my defroster here, I've got my windshield washer here, I've got my fog lights, and I've got my hazards. It's a very satisfying click, and the little lights light up, tell me that both of my turn signals are on. I just love that. Actual physical stuff. We have a clock that works. And then this is our inclinometer, which is another excellent word. It tells you whether you're tilted forward or back or side to side, if you're about to roll over, you know, it explains that to you. This car has a 5-speed gearbox. I know that because my shift lever tells me so. And it also tells me where reverse is. I don't have to do anything like extra special to get into reverse, which is kind of cool. You have no locking glove box. All of your pockets are open. You have a bin here and you have a bin over here. However, you do have a closing ashtray, which I guess is for safety. The fun thing about the ashtray is you can move it around in case you need it further away from the driver. You never know, I don't know. So the headlight control is kind of fun. It's this little clicky thing right here with the little light bulb on it. It goes click, click. See? The other very special feature in here is your 4-wheel drive lever, which is the lever down here that you just pull up to go into 4-wheel drive and push down, go back out of 4-wheel drive. So here we have the door. Of course, because this is a Japanese car, we have a Japanese warning label. And according to Google Translate, this says, "Please be sure to read the instruction manual before using your vehicle. Please follow the precautions in the instruction manual. Failure to do so may result in damage to the vehicle and/or serious danger to passengers and other road users." And in the door, you have another open pocket. We have like our very important user's manual and records and things in there. You have power windows, which is of course very cool. And then you have a very Fiat door latch. So in order to open the door, it's very easy if the door is closed. You can just put your hand on there and pull up and push the door open with your forearm. It's very efficient, very cool, and very, very Fiat. And then here on both sides are the fresh air vents, and we showed you the vents earlier on the hood where the fresh air comes in, and then it comes in through here. And of course you can adjust that. Also in here, you have the little lever that lets you move the mirror and adjust it up and down and back and forth. The fun thing about how small this car is that I, little short Amy, can reach all the way over here and adjust that mirror too if I want to. So, pretty neat. So, something you may have noticed about this car is that it has a back seat, but it doesn't have 4 doors. So there's got to be a way to get humans in the back seat. Now, most cars, you would just like flip a lever here and it would just pull the seat back forward. This is a little fancier than that. You pull this lever and the whole seat comes forward, which gives you way more room to get into the back of the car than if it was just the seat back flipping forward. So the back seat's pretty basic. It's nice. It's a bench. You don't have a ton of leg room with where we have our seats, but you know, those are adjustable. It's got matching fabric, just like the front, and that berm.
Which I said I was not going to talk about again.
But I just saw it, so that's what's gonna happen now.
Come feel the love. It's a love fest.
here we are in our Fiat Panda. This is a relatively modern car in our collection. I love this car. This is my first four-wheel drive, as opposed to all-wheel drive.
And even better, it's a tiny, underpowered four-wheel drive, which is why you love it.
It is. It's like if somebody shrank a Jeep in the wash. It's like so small, so cute, so Italian.
It's a love fest, all love.
I have wanted a Fiat Panda ever since I watched James May from Top Gear talk about his Panda and how much he loves it and how wonderful it is and how maneuverable and how safe and how lovely. Unfortunately, I don't think we got Fiat Pandas in this country.
Nope, never sold in the US.
So I had to wait until I could get one that had been legally imported. I have already driven this car on little trails in our friend's backyard, and that was fun. I'm not going to take this rock crawling or anything, but it can handle bumps really well, and it is remarkably comfortable in here. The seats are comfy. I fit in here. Alex also fits in here, which is nice. It's pretty easy to shift. Steering's precise. It feels very stable. I mean, it's a really stable car. I don't feel like it's top heavy. I don't feel like I'm going to tip over or anything.
It is a little bit bouncy. Honestly, it's got kind of off-roadish suspension to some extent.
The bounciness is a thing, but it's not pronounced.
Yes. It's just a fairly stiff suspension.
Yes.
But again, if you're going to be driving an off-road vehicle, you kind of want that.
Yep. The performance is decent, especially when you consider that you can take it off-road. It's fine with freeways too, highways, and
I mean, it'll go freeway speeds. I'm not sure it's as happy going freeway speeds, but it's a car that you feel like you're going faster than you actually are.
this is true. Yeah, I keep glancing down at the speedometer and going, oh, actually not going as quickly as I think I am. Of course, this is a kilometer speedometer, so I have to do a little bit of maths, but you know, that's just something to get used to. It's not a big deal. One really wonderful thing about this car is the heater works. And on a day like today, where it's really cold and kind of crisp, that's really, really nice.
I mean, right now, wearing a wool coat, if I had the heater up all the way, I'd be boiling.
Yes.
I had to turn it down.
Very efficient. Very much an all-purpose kind of little car. It's not the most powerful. I wouldn't tow anything with this. But as is, this is a fantastic car. Even if I didn't do those things, this would be a great long distance, daily drive, whatever car. When I got into this car for the first time, I experienced glee. And that's a that's a good thing for a car that we're adding to the collection. I feel that they should spark joy for us, if not for other people. I always hope that other people also enjoy our collection, because that's why we have it, partially to get it out there and share it with other people. But fundamentally, the main people who need to be happy with the cars in our collection is us.
Yep.
And this one definitely does that for me.
It's a love fest.
So I also like driving the Panda. It's actually kind of a fun car to drive. This is very much a city car, though. It's not really perfect for these high-speed drives. It's great in town and all of that. It's got a good amount of torque at the bottom end of its RPM range. It's geared really for that low-speed torque, which for a 4x4 makes sense. But once you start getting up there, it doesn't have quite the power exactly where you'd want it. It's a tiny engine. There's 2 adults in here, but it'll do it. It's not like you can't drive this on the freeway. You certainly can.
But it's not super happy about it. I mean, I can hear.
Yeah. You're turning higher RPMs than I normally would at 60 miles an hour, so it's just sort of the nature of things. But a car like this with a 4-wheel drive system is really not what you typically would expect to find. It's a very unusual thing, and that to me is a big part of why I think it's really a cool thing to have in the collection. I mean, we also have a Fiat 126. That's what this car replaced. And the Fiat 126 is a much, much more primitive vehicle in many, many ways. This is definitely a much more refined car. So it's interesting kind of seeing how much of a leap forward happened, basically transitioning from the 126 to the Panda. And well, admittedly, the early Panda you could get with the same engine as 126, so you wouldn't have gained quite as much. You also had a 4-cylinder option, even early on from the very beginning. And that makes a huge difference here. I mean, in general, this is a pretty nicely put together little vehicle. This car isn't as quiet as it could be because it's got fabric roofs and things, so you're going to have at least some wind noise at all times. But at the same time in the summer, it's nice to be able to open that up, make it kind of like a semi-convertible. I mean, I could see us doing something like a Panda Safari in one of these, basically one of the long distance, like drive it half off-road, half on-road, rough roads through the countryside in a like chain of other Pandas. I mean, they do that sort of thing. This car has a bit of a cult following, and it's a well-earned cult following because it is, in many ways, just a really cool, interesting, good car for what it is. And they're not that expensive. They were never that expensive. There are very few things that are like more functionally entry-level in this category of four-wheel drives. If you live in Europe, they're all over the place. They're pretty cheap. It's hard to find one that's sort of immaculate, but that's because most people who have owned them have driven them into the ground. They've driven them a lot. But driving around Italy, you still see them. Quite a few of them.
Well, and we did see a bunch of them in Portugal.
Yep. And of this generation, not just the modern ones. Because, of course, there is the modern replacement for this. It doesn't have quite the, like, Giugiaro styling that this does, which is part of what, to me, makes it attractive. But they are great little cars. Oh look, pavement ends. This is why we have four-wheel drive. And we're gonna at least get some gravel here. Hopefully we'll find something more adventurous. I'm gonna put it in four-wheel drive. So come to a stop, reach down, pull up the lever, click. We're in four-wheel drive according to the dash. Nice and simple. And off we go. This should be fun.
Let's go out, ride around, paint the town red. Chase some dragons, find some trouble, try to cheat death.
This is one of the fun things I like doing on this channel, is honestly exploring parts of Oregon and areas that I've not been. A lot of these roads, at one point, were either logging roads or access roads to some of these properties. Some of them are Forest Service roads. This one's actually on the map as a road, so technically this is public highway or public road.
We're allowed.
Yep. Normally I wouldn't be off exploring gravel roads, but frankly, it's a Panda. It's four-wheel drive. Why not? It's not the most valuable car, but it's also a very capable car, so it's perfect for this.
This is what it's for. This is honestly handling the gravel perfectly fine. I mean, there's a little bit of a like rumble. My seat is vibrating slightly, but it's not a big deal.
Hey, this should be fun.
On to the unmaintained roads.
Get out of the way, we're taking over. Don't care what you say, no, no, no. Get out of the way, we're taking over. And we're here to stay, we're here to stay.
This is another fun opportunity for us with the channel, is being able to go, hey, let's just go check stuff out. And who knows, maybe we'll find something that we'll want to revisit.
And we find some scenery that it's like, oh wow, that's gorgeous. I didn't know that was here.
Oh, look at that. It's pretty.
Get out of the way, we're taking over. Don't care what you say, no, no, no. Get out of the way, we're taking over. And we're here to stay, we're here to stay. Yeah, yeah. Get out of the way, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh.
Okay, we're back in the studio with now a significantly muddier Panda, and it's time for us to go into the Haugland Score. Here's how it works.
Alex and I have individually rated the car in 5 categories, each with a rank of 0 to 10. Then we add our scores together to give us the final Haugland score.
After we combine our scores, the results go up on the board.
So our first category is performance, and I gave it a 7. The brakes are good, the handling is good, it doesn't accelerate incredibly quickly. It does what it needs to do.
I gave it a 7, and the biggest downside of this car is honestly its acceleration. Normally I wouldn't give a car with kind of the general performance here necessarily as high as a 7, but you have to take into account what this car was actually built for. This car was built to also do off-road, which it does surprisingly well. So moving on from performance, next category is style. I ended up giving the car a 6, partly because it's a boxy econo-box of a car, but at the same time, it is a brilliant design. So it doesn't have style, but it has a lot of intelligence.
I think that's a good way of putting it. And the reason why I giggled is because I also gave it a 6. For similar reasons, it has its own personality,
Absolutely.
but I don't think it's very stylish.
Yeah.
So for drivability, I gave it an 8. This car would make an excellent daily driver, especially if you lived in a city and you just maybe wanted to go out in the hills on the weekends. You can put lots of groceries in it. You can put 4 people in it. You can park it anywhere. It's a great, durable, practical little car.
I actually gave it a 9. This is a car I could easily see driving every day. It really is very, very capable as a car. It is able to do pretty much anything I asked of it. If it's snowy or icy out, I'm not as worried about it. If it had more power and everything else, no question. But even with the power it has, it's a fantastic little car.
You are very convincing, and can I take that up to an 8.5?
Sure.
All right.
Okay. The next category is significance, and I feel that the Panda 4x4 in a lot of ways is actually a pretty significant car. I mean, the Panda in general was for Fiat. It was sort of their entry-level, everyday car for the people. It serves the same role as what the Fiat 126 did before it, and what the Fiat 500 did before that, and the Topolino before that. It really is sort of the car that Fiat built that everyone could use. It's still a great, usable car, and as far as significance, it is one of the most dominant cars in Italy and in much of Europe.
So what score did you give it?
Oh, that's a good question. I gave it an 8.
So that is also very amusing because I also gave it an 8. It marked honestly a big change for Fiat, even though they were still building an economy car. The fact that they put a 4x4 drivetrain in it is a big change. And the fact that the Fiat Panda in general, including the 4x4, is still incredibly popular in Europe and has been since its inception.
Delight. I gave this car a 7. I mean, it is a little city car, but it's actually pretty fun to drive. A lot of people don't necessarily recognize it here in the United States. I've shown pictures of this car to a lot of people, and they all think that it's like big SUV sized, just because it's a 4-wheel drive. It looks like someone had taken an SUV and washed it and shrunk it. It's just a fantastic little car.
I gave it an 8. And under normal circumstances, it would probably be a 6 or a 7 because while I love it, it's not as recognizable in the United States. You don't get as much, oh my gosh, that's so cool, though you do get that occasionally. But because it's my car, and this is our channel, and I have wanted one for a really long time, ever since I saw James May driving one, it's an 8.
So be it.
Having added up all of our scores, we have come to a total of 74.5 points for our 1998 Fiat Panda 4x4. That puts it in 8th place, only half a point behind our Morgan Arrow 8.
74.5. That means it's almost 3/4 of the way to being a perfect car. I think that's actually kind of a good summary, honestly, for the Panda. It is really a great little car for just being a car. It may not be the fastest, it may not be the most stylish, it may not be the whateverest, but at the same time, it really is just a really great little car.
I agree with your assessment. And so does the great James May of Top Gear, who said, "It is everything a car should be and no more."
Which is a great, in many ways, endorsement of the Fiat Panda.
Agreed.
Well, that's it for another episode of Everyday to Exotic. We hope you enjoyed watching. Please like, subscribe, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram.
We had a lot of fun. Hope you did too.
For our first off-road episode, I think it went really well.
I think so too.
It may not be our last. Hint, hint.
4 by foreshadowing. Well, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
It's roomier on the inside than you would expect.
Yeah.
A little bit tar to see.